Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, what will Ainsworth do? Also, Alabama ranks 5th in gun violence. And Tommy Tuberville is going to have to answer the residency question.
I hate to be technical, Lieutenant, but you'll need a search warrant.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Mr. Hammond?
Maybe not a subpoena. How about a deposition in Montgomery? Yeah, that'll do it. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, guys.
Well, we're going to the last leg. This next week will be the last, the final week of the 2025 legislative session. And let me say, it has been a doozy. It has not been a snoozy, but it has been a doozy. But there's still a lot of controversial bills that are, churning through the system. Mm-hmm. Some of them will make it, some of them won't. One of them, I know, Josh, you and I both looked at this in depth, and that was the bill to reform the Birmingham Water Works board. And this is much less a reform than it is a takeover by the state legislature to take the governance of the board away from this current board that's been doing a really good job compared to the boards in the past. But this, Josh, to you and I both, and I know Susan too, this smells more like something from the 1950s than the 1940s, maybe the 1930s. It does not smell like 2025.
Yeah, it reeks of the consolidation of power in Montgomery, and the removal of allowing local governments to handle local business and local issues for their residents, and we've seen that a lot, particularly when the cities in question happen to be majority Black. We seem to push a whole lot for the power or whatever decisions that are going to be made in those cities to be made in Montgomery instead. We've seen it. You see the things that's happened with the city of Montgomery, the city of Birmingham, a whole number of different places have had the legislature step in, while at the same time we have very serious problems happening in other cities that they seem to ignore. I mean, how many police departments now have been declared criminal organizations by the feds? And there's not a single bill. Matter of fact, the only bills are bills to give the police departments more power.
Right.
It's just insanity.
It is. But for years, the Birmingham Water Works was a mess, but they have come in, they've cleaned it up. They have a AAA bond rating right now, I think it is. Their water quality, according to EPA, is very, very good. And it just seems political to me, Susan, because, all right, so basically 90% of the customers live in Jefferson County, but they want to delegate control to the suburbs that maybe have 100 customers in each one. They really want to give it over to the white congressional district, the Republicans that surround Jefferson County.
Yeah, they've cleaned it up. It wasn't several years ago. It was total mess. But, they've gone in. They've even got an independent individual that keeps the board in check.
Yeah, former three-star general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, so they've really gone above and beyond to make sure this is above board. But yet Montgomery still wants to take it out of their hands and put it in the white suburbs to control the board.
Josh, this is just a kind of power grab that this legislature has been known for. This past week, they okayed, once again, the Don't Say Gay bill, which is taking the power away from the Department of Education, from teachers, they're not doing it to universities, but they're going to have this bill, Don't Say Gay, go all the way through K-12, which if you don't know about gays by the time you're in K-12, you must be living in a like a closet in your family home and not even go to school.
Right. I mean, the kids don't know about sex. The kids don't know about gays. By the time they hit high school, that's ridiculous. I swear these bills do two things. All right. They take away from the fact that they're not doing anything down there. This is, another shiny ball over here. And it is, dividing people when it shouldn't. I mean, this is just insanity. No gay pride flags in the classrooms. Don't say gay. Don't identify as, transgender. And it's almost as though they think by doing this, it's going to make it go away.
Josh, I think it's a lot like COVID. If you don't count the numbers of people who died, you don't have any problems, right?
Yeah. Quit testing for COVID. No more COVID.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I think it's a lot to do with parents naively believing that through sheer force of will that they can keep their children, these innocent small children, forever. Instead of accepting the reality that their kids are going to grow up. And listen, man, it's tough. It's tough to look back at the photos and stuff. I get it. I see them when the Facebook memories are the devil, to look back, 2-3 years ago and see how much your kids have grown and stuff. And this is another example of that. And, but they do grow up, and we see the problems that this sort of naivete has caused throughout our state. Okay. In terms of our sex education and the sexually transmitted diseases and the high birth rates among teens and all of these problems that we have. And this idea that your kids are going to go into high school or even middle school for that matter, and not understand that there are gay marriages out there and that there are two people of the same sex who love each other and who cohabitate and get married and raise families and live perfectly great lives. That's insane. That's insane, man. You've got to accept it. Talk to your kids and have a decent relationship with them and make them understand.
But they want to create a world in which these people do not exist and absolutely ignore it. Now, it all started out because they needed a replacement
for Roe v. Wade.
For saying, for Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, the Dobbs decision.
And they decided, oh, well, we can pick on transgender kids. We can go back after gays. I remember the Southern Baptist minister talking to me 20 years ago saying, we have lost on the gay issue. Well, they're winning on it now. And the thing is, to deny the facts, you cannot pray away gay. You can't pray it in either. You can't convert someone to be gay. You either are or you are not. And
this is not something new in society. It's gone on for centuries. Yeah. It's not going to change. I don't care how you try to legislate it. It's better that your kids know now than, to find out later. I mean, that's why we send them to school, is to get educated.
Well, if ignorance were bliss, we'd be the happiest state in the Union. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Over the last several weeks, there's been a lot of reporting on where Tommy Tuberville lives. I think we first started raising the residency issue, and we have looked at it. Susan, you've looked at it. Josh, you've looked at it. We've looked at it exhaustively, and it does not appear to any rational person that he actually lives in Alabama.
No, he doesn't.
I had a conversation with some people that are close to him, and they put forth their argument. And I finally said, do you think that we are so naive and so ignorant that we would think a wealthy man, would live in a 1,500 square foot home in Auburn, Alabama, rather than his $6 million beach house in Santa Rosa, Florida, where his wife spends her days? And Josh, you've done a lot of looking at this. And in fact, your reporting led to David Cole, Representative David Cole, having to vacate his seat and for being prosecuted for voter fraud. Now, we know that Mr. Tuberville and his wife, Suzanne, have voted in Alabama, and they absentee voted in Alabama and have used that Cherry Street address in Auburn when they voted. Now, if they are not residents, I'm not saying they're going to go to jail. I'm just saying it would be illegal.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at the David Cole situation, that's what essentially ended his House participation and forced him to resign the House seat. He was convicted of voter fraud in two different instances because he used a phony address, the address that he used to qualify for his seat, because his house had been drawn out of District 10 up here in Madison, and it was in District 4 at that time. And so he used a phony address of a friend, claimed he was renting space from this friend to claim, to move into District 10 and run for that open seat. And under a deposition, and this is what would happen if they go through this process and there's a challenge laid out there. They would go, first of all, it's going to go to the Republican Party. All right. Somebody on the Republican side is going to file a challenge with the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is going to have to hold a hearing, and they're going to determine whether or not he can be on the ballot. And I think John Wall has already given some indication that he is not exactly the most impartial of jurists, and he's going to certify that Tommy Tuberville is going to be on that ballot, regardless of what anybody says. At that point, it's probably going to fall to the Democrats if Tommy Tuberville were to win the Republican nomination for governor. And so they would file the challenge, and it would then be managed by a court. So it would probably be filed in Montgomery County. And it would be managed by a circuit court judge in Montgomery County who would make the rulings and issue what was supposed to take place. And they'll have a process in which they go and give depositions at a certain point under oath. So under oath, Tommy Tuberville and whoever else is involved in this thing will have to give some depositions out of this. And they'll have to answer questions under oath about where he lives, where he's laid his head, how many nights does he spend in that house, where the majority of his things are. All of these things. And then the other side can present witnesses and other stuff that goes along to dispute those things, along with the different records. And so that's going to create a record. And if along the way in there, it becomes obvious that Tommy Tuberville does not live in that home, then it's going to be a problem on two fronts. One, in his run for governor, and two, in terms of the voting eligibility that he had when he cast those absentee ballots.
Well, and Susan, this is not about whether you like Tommy Tuberville or you dislike Tommy Tuberville. This is about the law. And Republicans used to be about the law, but it seems in this instance they're ready to sweep it under the table.
They absolutely are. And it's a constitutional issue. This is something that is from 1901, where it says, and it was to stop carpetbaggers from coming into Alabama and going for elected offices. And it says that you have to have consistently lived in the state of Alabama for 7 years. And it has to be, your domicile must be there. Now, your domicile means, like Josh just said, where you lay your head, where the majority of your things are, in order for it to be an Alabama residence. Well, from what we can see, that is not the case with Tommy Tuberville.
Right.
And in fact, his residency, I don't believe, will actually be 7 years until March 2026.
Right.
Now, that'll be right before the primary, of course, but he will be, if he were an actual resident, it won't be until March 2026 that he would have made that 7-year
Right,
mark.
right, and that's based on the new driver's license he got before he ran, because he had a Florida driver's license before he ran for Congress, and then he got one in March of 2019. So we know this. One thing that happened over the last week was Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth, who has basically been saying so much that he's running for governor. Now we're not so sure whether he's running or not, but he did put out a poll on Facebook and said, "Hey, should I run for governor? Should I run for Senate? Should I go home?" And the overwhelming result was people, and it's unscientific, I get that, but the overwhelming support for him was to be governor.
Out of 275 comments, the majority, I'd say over 80%, were governor. It's obviously the people want him for governor. There's been another poll, not a scientific poll, that AL.com did, I think, where it says, where should Tommy Tuberville go? And majority of those answers were back to the Senate.
Now, we had a scientific poll, Josh. It was done by a JL group. They are one of the top polling groups, according to Politico and News Nation. And they said Republican voters want Tuberville to stay in the Senate.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic with Tommy Tuberville that I've heard, and a lot of this, a lot of what we're talking about is anecdotal kind of evidence when we're talking about the Facebook polls and things like that. But I think all of us have had these conversations with a ton of Republicans. And listen, if there are Republicans that would like to dispute this, I'm happy to hear from them. But the ones that I have spoken to mostly like Tommy Tuberville fine, but they don't want him to be governor.
No.
They don't want him. They don't believe, and this is what I've heard over and over again, is they don't believe he's a serious gubernatorial candidate. All right. They don't believe he's taking these things seriously. And when you're the governor of the state, you have the responsibility of managing a lot of decisions that truly affect business decisions and incomes at the ground level of things. And they're scared to death that he's going to get in and not take it seriously, as he has with some of the things he's done in the Senate. Where the Senate, he can kind of be overshadowed and helped along in some of that stuff, and they're fine with his pro-Trump stuff. They don't believe he's the right call to be governor up here, and I think that's why you see the numbers in the polls.
Well, and the things that we're seeing is that basically he wants to come down here and be a disruptor. He's calling the legislature lazy, saying they're not getting their work done. So he's wanting to come down here. From my understanding of what's out there in the rumor mill, is he wants to come down here and try to Donald Trump Alabama.
Well, and the thing is he's no Donald Trump. But the thing, and we know this from multiple sources, he has called the legislature lazy. He's called the leadership weak. That is not a good way to start as governor. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission was sued recently by a group of parents who point out that they have broken the law once again. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, there's certain benchmarks that they're supposed to meet under the law,
Yeah.
and they have not met one of the benchmarks, which is creating a patient registry. And so, but it's all it's all rolled into the failures overall. Okay, I mean that's what this thing really is the failures overall have prevented them from meeting certain benchmarks within the law that they should have met long ago, and it's a good reminder. This lawsuit is a good reminder that there are patients out there that are suffering. Legitimate people who need this product are suffering because these people have refused to simply follow the law. There was a point in time in this thing, several points in time actually, where they could have gone back and said, okay, here is the Alabama Administrative Procedures Act process for determining how a license should be doled out. We'll just follow it step by step and we'll issue the license. And there would have been zero chance that anybody could have sued them, that anybody could have taken legal action, that would have made it past the initial filings of these things. And it would be over by now. We would have this product out and things would be running along. We would have the license issued. They have refused turn after turn after turn to do that.
And during the same time period that this lawsuit came out, Susan, John McMillan, the director of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, went on television and said, we've done everything right. We've done everything that the law required us to do. No, you haven't.
No.
No.
This registry was supposed to be available September 1st, 2022. 3 years ago. And they've dragged their feet because they're so attached to these people that they have issued the licenses to, which are now defunct. But nevertheless, they've dragged this process on. Meanwhile, people are suffering who need this and can't get it legal in the state. It's damn ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm just getting fed up with these people who are just holding this up for their cronies or buddies or whatever. Meanwhile, people are suffering in the state.
Yeah.
This is not a light subject.
And Josh, they don't seem to want to do anything. And even if the courts seem to be forcing them to do it, it's going to be another year or two before anything happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, the courts move very, very slowly.
Yeah.
That's why I say this thing could have been solved if they had simply gone back and said, oh, we made a mistake. We set up a process that we thought was going to be better or whatever. They could have explained it however they want to explain it. But the simple fact is we made a mistake. We broke the law. We didn't follow the guidelines that are set before us to do this. And so now we have to do it. And if they had simply done that, we would now have this product out. And but they refuse over and over and over again. And they continue to insist that they are the ones that are somehow the victims of these, all these lawsuits coming down. Listen, man, these judges and courts and stuff, they don't care. They don't care about this stuff. They care whether or not you follow the law.
Yeah.
And the attorneys have come in and said you didn't follow it. And the judges said, yeah, they got a pretty good point here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the judges wouldn't hear it unless there was grounds for them to actually hear it.
And
so yes, you've done something wrong.
Meanwhile, John McMillan gets a 6-figure salary. The lawyers are getting millions of dollars. And the people of Alabama are paying for nothing. We're getting nothing out of these people.
And we're getting no tax revenue off of the product itself.
Yeah. Well, they could have done something about it during this legislative session, but they chose not to.
They wash their hands of it.
There you go.
As usual. They don't want to work. They just want to do the hot button issues.
There were transgender athletes out there, okay? Like 6 total ever. And we needed to address those. None of them in our state, but there were some, so we needed to get after that.
Well, let's not forget.
And not this.
Let's not forget that there's the gay pride flags in every classroom in Alabama. We had to do something.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But
Gotta be. It's rampant.
I love the fact that 99.9% of them, it seems, claim the Christian mantra. And they say that they are Christians and they stand by this, but they don't follow Christ. They don't follow Jesus' example of feed the poor, clothe the naked. Where's the compassion, the love, the caring for individuals? It's actually called a compassion bill.
It's spewing hatred.
Yeah.
It's generating hatred. That is not Christian value.
And I think, Josh, you wrote something about cruelty. And sometimes I think cruelty is the point with some of these guys. But I want to move on. We only got about 2 minutes left here. Alabama, according to data put together by The Trace, which our Chip Brownlee, works on
yes,
the Trace,
who's also up for an award.
put together shows that Alabama is the 5th most violent state for gun violence in the nation. In the nation.
Yeah.
5th most violent, gun violent state in the nation. We don't protect the weak and the poor, but we protect our guns like they were Jesus's own weapon.
Right. Louisiana, Illinois, Mississippi, and Delaware have us beat. They did a study over a 10-year period from 2014 to 2024, in which the incident rate in Alabama was 213.6 incidents per 100,000 residents, which is 83% higher than the national average. Now, they did come this year. I will say they did come this year with the Glock switch bill, which should help, especially with mass shootings, which we've had.
Yeah.
But that's all I've got, because they've done nothing else.
But Josh, they are adamant that they protect the Second Amendment right to the hilt, but they will not protect free speech, and they sure as heck are trying to overturn the Establishment Clause, establishment of religion.
Yeah, and honestly, the Glock switch ban is about the lowest bar you could possibly have for doing anything.
I know, but I had to give them something.
It's turning a weapon that's legal into an illegal weapon. It's an automatic weapon at that point, and it's completely uncontrollable. And the idea that we kicked this thing around for 2 years before we heroically passed this Glock switch ban is just it shows the absurdity of this whole thing. This is the reason why this attitude towards weapons and guns is the reason why we have this ranking. Okay, that's the reason why. If you want to change it, you're going to have to change this attitude towards weapons and start doing more common sense things and putting more regulations on weapons and the access to weapons by people who shouldn't have them. And they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And so we're going to continue with this. And then they're going to blame, I don't know, gay librarians or something. So, that's just what we're doing.
I laugh because it's not that absurd.
It is not that absurd, but what is absurd is that we are basically turning to guns into porn, and that somehow we have to protect this porn using the Second Amendment. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.